some people might think that creativity is something that you're born with. I really think that anyone can learn the creative process. It just takes the right kind of training. So you really have a lot of choice and support from us on what your digital transformation and change looks like. And you got a lot of choice in the software that's going to help you get there. We can't keep missing out on great hires, creative, critical thinkers, people that have a passion for tech, just because of their gender or their identity or their skin color, right? I am plugged into engineering and marketing in our organization, so I get to learn about all this technology as well at the same time and really keep myself sharp and up to date.
We are here with Bill Livezey, Worldwide Director of Azure Core Enablement at Microsoft. Bill has such a vast range of experiences in software and technology. He has worked for a variety of sectors, consulted for companies including Universal Studios, 20th Century Fox, Warner Bros., Nissan, Toyota, and he's been at Microsoft for over 26 years. He brings his expertise on cloud computing here today, and I am so thankful to have him on. Bill, thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm super happy to be here.
Could you start by telling us more about Microsoft Azure, your role, and some of the previous experiences that led you to this role?
Sure. Yeah. And, on the first of all, Azure or Azure, you can go either way on the pronunciation. So it's perfectly acceptable. A lot of the, tech industry, and, it's been Azure, right? Probably American accent kind of thing. But I think, there's a couple of ways that you can view Azure. One would be to take a technologist view, right? It's a cloud platform. It's made up of hundreds of products and services, management services, platform as a service stuff, web applications, and AI and security and infrastructure and all that stuff. But the kind of the more fun view of it to me is how it's the power behind how companies are innovating. They're figuring out how to do more with less through cloud, adapting to that rapidly changing world that's happening right now. And one of my favorite ways to describe Azure and cloud is really how an organization maybe accomplish something big. And a story that I like to tell is a company somebody's probably always heard of. It's the American Cancer Society. And it's not a project that I was involved in, but I love this because I think it sums up Azure really well. The American Cancer Society, they've raised like $5 billion since the 80s for cancer research. And a big way that they do that is for the Azure Relay, or it's called the Relay for Life. And a lot of profits have the same problem where overhead dollars really start to take away from research dollars. And, things kind of got crazy for them during the height of the pandemic. So they suddenly had the need to take everything virtual, right? Everybody couldn't be face to face. And it's difficult to do when you're in the constraints of your own data center and your applications live there. So they took their applications to the cloud, and it meant that they could start to run their entire environment virtually. And they could jettison the maintenance, the upgrades, and the other costs, and location wasn't a barrier for them anymore. What it really meant for them was that they could get more meaningful engagement with the community. But what they could really do was adapt fast and focus on what they do best, which is their mission for cancer research. So that's a lot about Azure. If you want to hear about my role, now, my role is it's actually the most fun job in the world, I think, at least it is for me right now. We have about 1,000 sellers globally that work with our customers they figure out exactly how we can help them change their world, change their company, change what they do through Azure, through digital innovation, transformation, all terms that you've probably heard. It's my job to basically make sure that they're constantly learning and that they're ready to do that. So How we do that, it's been evolving really quickly the last couple of years for sure. Everything else is changing. And I think like as human beings, we're really keen to have information and knowledge at our fingertips, right? You can do a search and find anything so quickly now. But everybody also learns in different ways. And so some people are super visual, some people are hands-on, some are really good, audibly, right? So like podcasts are a great way and obviously super popular. The big problem that we have is the sprawl and kind of the inundation of information, keeping it up to date. Somebody might say, well, where do I find X? Well, you might end up finding a dozen different resources on a topic, and they don't necessarily always agree. So we've been really working hard to try and keep our one sources of truth down to a minimum, trying to eliminate repetitive content, trying to publish things out faster, making things more easily discoverable. And at the same time, it's a lot of fun for me because I am plugged into engineering and marketing in our organization. So I get to learn about all this technology as well at the same time and really keep myself sharp and up to date.
So I want to jump right into what the heck the last couple of years have been in the world of cloud computing. Obviously, the topic of conversation exploded in the past few years as the workforce adapted to the global pandemic, but you are on the front lines working with one of the biggest cloud computing companies. So I would love if you could summarize the world of cloud computing in 2022. Where are we headed with it in 2023? And what impact do you think this is going to have on the labor market?
Ah, uh, if I were to summarize it, I would say competitive. You mentioned, we're one of three major hyperscale clouds, and the market is really spread among the three of us. Adopting multi-cloud is pretty normal for the largest of large companies these days. And sometimes I think back, it's like, well, we might start having those best of breed, best of integration conversations again that we had a few years ago. But I think that the cloud is a lot different. Seriously, we tend to operate under the assumption that for our customers, it's, you have a lot of choices to make, and we really just want to be the most secure, most compliant, most interoperable cloud out there. So there's thousands of partner solutions that are built on top of Azure. So you really have a lot of choice and support from us on what your digital transformation and change looks like. And you got a lot of choice in the software that's going to help you get there. So did you ask about like, did you want to know about some technology advances and things as well?
I'd love to know about the tech advancements that you think are coming up. I know there's a lot of predictions for cloud in 2023, and also how you think this is going to impact the labor market.
Yeah, I think containerized computing is huge, and just the super simple on that for people. That this bundles your application code, the configuration of it, the dependencies together. So it's kind of not opposed to, but maybe a super simplified way would be kind of an evolution of virtual machine computing, where a lot of that configuration can be spread out and be more complex, and therefore your application can't be very portable. So containerized computing, huge. I think that'll continue to be a lot of growth there through 2023 and beyond. You can't go anywhere without hearing about AI and machine learning. It scares some people, right? But it's really helped us grow, right? Now AI, you've probably heard, is being trained to train AI. So you got code creating code, which again, can seem scary as well. But it really is a technology that's helping us wrangle the massive amount of growth. If you go back to the information that I talked about at everybody's fingertips, there's so much of that out there. The same with companies; they're getting so much data, so many signals in. I think security is a really good example of that. We're a really huge security organization as well, being a cloud company. Probably security first, really, when you think about it, because we don't have anything without security. I don't know what the statistics are because they grow every day, but there are like trillions of signals that come into our data center, different security signals. And there's no way human beings can catch up or keep up with all those that are coming in. And I mean, with trillions, there's no way that humans can even keep up with the aggregation of the data that's coming in. So this is where AI gets applied to really make things, cost effective and scalable, and really help humans do things that they couldn't figure out on their own, right? With all those trillions of signals coming in, is this something that a human needs to take action on? Uh, and then the third area that I think is going to be, or I know is really big and up and coming, and we've seen it, is the advent of low code and no code type solutions. So, building an application, analyzing data, these are things that business people are doing and can do now more and more and more. So things that used to require like a team of IT people, it's like, oh, I've got to call IT and help them, they've got to help me build this application or get this data set together so that I can make sense out of it. It's something that's really becoming accessible to every person now with those low code type solutions. And that's where I think that like the market transformation or the impact to the labor market is really good, because things are changing, yes, and jobs are shifting with digital for sure. You'll see very highly technical people that are being brought in now to transform traditional stuff like insurance or nonprofits or healthcare, or manufacturing, lots of other industries. The skills that were maybe once reserved for or thought would just be like you'd be in a high-tech type IT job, those are skills that are going into the industry and they're making big changes. So just making things faster, more data-driven, figuring out how you use less resources to get more done, whatever the mission of your organization is.
Now, you've pretty much covered the spectrum in terms of industries and organizations you've collaborated with. So you get a lot of exposure to how some of these digital transformation decisions are made across different types of companies. Here at Solvable, we're looking to help future tech talent better understand the key decision makers when it comes to cloud transformations in a company. So can you give us some insight on what this process looks like, specifically who is involved, how these initiatives are kicked off, and how are some of the hiring decisions made for these projects?
Yeah, sure. I think that going back to what I was saying earlier about the rapid change of the last few years, there are planned and unplanned transformations that happen. There was a lot of unplanned transformation the last 3 years. Who knew that so many people would be working from home? And then we thought everybody's going to go back to work. It's like, yes, no, a lot of people. A lot of people are going to hybrid work and stuff. So I've been inside this office for 3 years now, and you can tell I'm not going crazy at all. But yeah, I think that when it's planned out, right, there's a roadmap at the company, and a lot of times I think it's about a company or an organization choosing something really meaningful too, right? I worked in public sector. You probably saw that too. I worked in public sector for 12 years, where I learned a lot. And one thing that I found that was really remarkable was how a different administration, a different team, or a different agency might approach change. There was one state that I worked with that they wanted to replace their entire family and social services platform. And it went through several iterations of failure because they always treated it like this big bang project, right? Where the system would go to RFI, RFP, and then a year would pass, and a decision would eventually be made, and then the project would kick off, and then hundreds of people get involved, and then another year would pass, and nothing quite got delivered, and then we'll blame it on the software, we'll blame it on the people, whatever, right? And that stuff can go on for 4 or 5 years. And this is kind of history. Things are obviously much quicker with cloud now, but in that same state, there was another organization, another agency. It was their motor vehicles bureau, that they were making like these modular changes to approach. And in the end, they crushed the change, right? It's like one of the best DMV systems that you'll see in the country. Like services are so fast and everything. And they really transformed that. I think that cloud initiatives in companies are kicked off by looking at what the true need is and then dissecting that down into more manageable parts. Last year, I got to work with a large financial services company, and they were looking to move off of their mainframe. And you ask a lot of questions in that situation, right? So, do you rip and replace the whole system, or can you identify areas of the business where you can make like meaningful application changes in smaller chunks? And when I was a consultant in my early in my career, this is always kind of the approach that I would recommend for people was set a manageable goal and then go out and get a win with it. So who would you get in front of? I think you can find out a lot about an organization by watching the company's executive leaders. I mean, if you want to find out about Microsoft, it's like you can plenty of great, it's like start with Satya, right? It's like that's the tone and the culture, right? It's like that's a great place to start, as an organization, and from there, right? It's super important for someone to network, right? Use that LinkedIn, get to know the people that are running the business lines and that are making the decisions, right? Is this a change that you want to be part of and that you can get on board with and contribute some things to? So I think LinkedIn really is a gold mine of information, or a gold mine kind of place to start.
I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's helpful for candidates to have that more in-depth picture of what goes behind the scenes. So even as they're networking or as they're mapping out their own career aspirations, they have some level of framework to go off of. Now,
Yes.
You've obviously been in tech for quite some time. You've likely gotten to see a variety of supply and demand shifts for particular tech roles. At this point in time, what tech roles do you think are the hardest for companies to fill successfully, and why do you think that is?
All of them. These days, I think it's about finding the right skill mix that you need. So lots of people with certain technical skills, lots of people with, great other skills that are important, critical thinking and stuff, right? So I think that more than anything, I think with 8 billion people on the planet now, right? We just crossed the 8 billion mark. I think we just need to keep encouraging and like opening the door of opportunity for everyone. We can't keep missing out on great hires, creative, critical thinkers, people that have a passion for tech, just because of their gender or their identity or their skin color, right? Every time that a person feels discouraged or not included, and I've seen this, and it hurts. It's right because they never enter, or maybe they just quit like a STEM program. So many like young girls like quit STEM programs. I got to go and watch a women in cyber panel a few years ago, and the youngest panelist, I think she was like just getting into the end of high school, and she talked about how there were, I don't know, like 50 people in her STEM class when she started in the program, which was like really specifically around cyber development kind of stuff. And, at first, I think she said maybe it was like 10 girls, 40 boys or something. And she said by the time at the end there, she was one of 2 girls that was left in the program. So I think like we lose incredible talent to bias. I think in addition to that, security is someplace else that there's still a pretty big professional shortage and it's difficult to fill. Getting better. 3 years ago, I was lucky enough to be, I got to work with Argonne National Lab. And they had a situation that was kind of similar to what I was saying earlier about like the American Cancer Society, right? But Argonne was building this cyber workforce development program, and they wanted to scale it out and make it really big, right? So we helped them take it to the cloud, take it to Azure, so that they could scale it out across the country and include a lot more participants, train a lot more, college kids, and even like open it up to non-college, maybe some high schools or veterans or other groups, right? Um, that is another scenario where cloud let people focus on what they do best. And that I got to catch up with that team a few weeks ago because it was Cyber Security Awareness Month. And I got to catch up with the team, and they were like, yeah, the program has scaled up huge since I was first working on it with them. And they're really making a dent in the skills gap, but there's still a long way to go. Overall, I think that the hardest thing for employers is just to find that right mix, though, of non-technical skills and matching that up with the skills that a person brings naturally, right, with whatever they're looking to do.
Absolutely. Now, I loved reading your bio about your 13-year-old self, inspired by the movie War Games and your computer classes and your dad's career in IT, fueling your passion for tech. Based on your personal journey and where you believe technology is headed, what advice do you have for upcoming tech talent? What skill sets and experiences do you believe will give them the opportunity to grow and really be happily challenged in their careers?
Oh, my nerdy 13-year-old self. I love that you like that. So, but I mentioned critical thinking a minute ago, right? Critical thinking, creativity. Those are like really solid skills, and despite that fact that some people might think that creativity is something that you're born with, I really think that anyone can learn the creative process. It just takes the right kind of training and the right opportunity of learning of how you can apply creative thinking to a solution. And then I think, like, regardless of how far you have to go, just accept the fact, like resign yourself to the fact that you'll never know everything. There's always something that you can learn, even if you're like the stone cold subject matter expert on something. And luckily, that's never a problem that I've had, being the stone cold subject matter expert on something. I'm a lifelong master of no thing, but I'm hoping that even at age 52, that I've got a lot more years of learning ahead of me. As far as what skill sets and experiences are going to give you opportunity, just to maybe hone in on that, just embrace every experience. And maybe that sounds wide and generic, but try to always think about what you're learning out of something, even if it's bad, right? Especially problems and failures. It's pretty easy. Like, it's human nature to let a problem stress you out, right? It's like a problem comes up and, oh, there goes the pressure and the heartbeat goes up and you're like, face gets red. You've got to realize that the stuff that tells you what you're going to do or what you're not going to do the next time so that you can get it right or closer to right is the really golden and good stuff. So I will never forget a few years ago, I actually left my suit and I left my wife's dress at home before we traveled across the country before our best friend's wedding. I left it hanging up in our bathroom and forgot to pack it with our stuff. And believe me, I never made that mistake again.
You laugh about it now?
Oh, it's funny now, but it was not so funny mid-flight when my wife leaned over to me and she was like, "You packed your suit in my dress, right?" And like, all the color went out of my face, white as a sheet. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And this was a Saturday, like we were arriving Saturday night in Vegas. They were getting married. They had a reserved time at a chapel on Sunday morning.
Goodness.
So we found a Macy's in Vegas that was open on Sunday morning. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Hilarious. Oh, Bill, tell us some of your secrets for thriving as a tech leader and key lessons you've learned along your journey.
Always be working on yourself, have confidence in yourself. We talk to new hires. One of the things that I do program wise is onboarding strategy for our new hires and really talking to them. We talk to our new hires a lot about imposter syndrome and how it is very, very real. Probably for the majority of people, right? It's like, I'm not qualified to do this. I can't. I hope nobody ever finds me out, right? I've been saying that my whole career. Uh, I mean, if there's anybody out there that was born with the 100% confidence in themselves, I think you've got the rest of us pretty jealous of you. Like, be really happy that you have that because, yeah. I think the other thing that goes along with that is I've been working really hard on myself the last year. Try not to deflect compliments and really take them in, and try not to answer things with self-deprecating humor. I asked my coworker Shelly; she'll tell you that I do that. I was doing that a lot. I don't deserve your praise. So I think if there's any key lesson that I've learned in my journey, it's just to be honest and true. I've had some pretty crappy moments in my life, like everybody, and those have come usually after a time where maybe I've been less than genuine. And it happens to a lot of people. They want to be somebody else, or they want to be like other people so that you can fit in. So you might adapt to their vocabulary or their mannerisms, or get involved with an activity that you have no interest in, right? Maybe you take up golf and you hate golf. Right? I think that the next thing that when you do that is that you start to lose your own identity. And so this is something that I still, at my old age, it's not old age, this is something that I work on every day myself. And it's really been the last 15 years of my life or so that I've worked really hard on trying to be my natural self. It's like, this is Bill Livezey. This is who he is. And maybe I'm still not great at it, but I'm gonna keep working on it.
Words of wisdom, Bill. I appreciate that takeaway so much today. Last
Thanks.
question for you. At Solvable, we are all about what drives purpose and meaning for people at work. So I'd love to know what drives purpose and meaning for you at Microsoft.
Yes. I am a very, very results driven person, and maybe accomplishments kind of driven. Like, you have to get something done. Even in my personal life, I can't sit around all day and watch TV anymore. I probably did when I was a kid a lot. Maybe I got it all done, but it's like I won't reward myself with sitting down and resting until I've accomplished at least one little thing. It's like, you clean the floors or something, right? You clean the house. So I think one of the hardest things in the workplaces is coming into a new company or a new job, and you might work yourself to death to get that first win, and forsake your vacations and all that stuff. And in my new role now, it was really about getting a lot of my ideas and programs implemented, or at least start to get some of that stuff out there. So the purpose and the meaning for me was getting something done where I have a great story to tell at the end, right? I can go back and reflect on it, like some of the other stuff that I've said earlier, right? It's like, hey, what, we learned these three things, and look at what we accomplished. And this is where I think that my work has a lot of meaning. And I think that it's okay to be passionate about anything. It doesn't matter whether that's doing something in healthcare that's leading people to live better lives, right? Very noble, very awesome. Or maybe it's a project where you cut costs, or you worked on a team that invented this next great thing. It doesn't matter, right? It's kind of the coolest thing in the world about Microsoft, and the reason that I've spent most of my career here. Sometimes it feels like there isn't an area of civilization where we haven't taken technology and people to make a positive impact on something. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of people. But I think the best part of my work life has been being able to be a part of projects and teams where I've been able to have a positive impact.
Phil, thank you so much for being on with us today. And thank you all for listening to Architects of Contemporary Hiring.
Thank you, Lisa.